Hi, this is Bill Foote, and this is the final week of a 6-week MBA course called Informing Decisions, Decision Making with Spreadsheets. We are at the point where we're going to pull all of the pieces together. The very last piece that we looked at was simulation, especially when there is a relationship between two or among several parameters. I'm using a Cholesky transformation to manage that technical numerical problem, which has deep ramifications in decision making. What we're going to do here is take the very next step. We're going to simulate several, a whole lot, of optimal decisions. And we're going to see what that results in when we do that kind of a simulation across three types of decisions. Now, there's going to be a labor decision in this model that we have not seen before, but it's really derivative of a production scheduling decision, which we have seen. There's also a pricing decision, which we've also seen. Those are the three big areas that management in this particular case is particularly concerned about, with all sorts of other ramifications, not the least of which are what happens if, and this is where we have scenarios and scenario elements. What happens if customer demand changes? Well, there are two assumptions in customer demand. One is a fixed demand that's irrespective of any pricing movement or event, and then a pricing specific movement. That's the best we can do. An example of a non-pricing event is simply household budgets, household access to the market in this particular case. For example, international access might be curtailed by logistical issues or food quality issues in the case of make a pie. Tariffs, taxes, other things can get inside of a consumer's decision to buy or not buy a pie. That's a good example of a non-price condition. Prices, of course, speak for themselves. These are home prices in current currencies. So what, and anything outside of New York City is, in this particular case, is considered foreign? No, not quite. Very different perhaps, but not foreign. What we're going to do is use all of the tools we have to manage this. I think we had possibly another piece there. If we're putting labor in here, we're taking a model from very standard microeconomics that relates the sensitivity of labor, the labor requirement in this particular case. How much labor does make a pie need in terms of FTE, full-time equivalent? That's not an integer, it's a non-integer. Uh, so in terms of FTE, what is the impact on FTE of changes in output? And the model is usually a production function where the output is a function of this sensitivity of labor to output. We're going to solve that equation for labor in the model. It ends up not being a constraint of the structure. It's a result of the model. That's a little bit of model cheating, but it'll get us in the same breath margin, inventory costs, production costs, and we're going to assume that labor costs are, of course, part of production costs, as we have already in our and our workup on this model. Uh, the other thing that we're going to call a scenario element, we'll go through these again and again here, are production costs, as we just said, which includes labor. We're going to have assumptions about how those uh, change. Now, these are scenario elements. If we change the way the scenario elements or put in different elements, we have a new scenario. And in this exercise, we want to produce two scenarios. The first one is in front of us here. So we have to describe that. And then we're going to create another one, defend it as well, say why we need this scenario, what interesting thing, what question might it answer for us. Because all of this is usually part of a tabletop uh, exercise with management and management teams. So we have a model that helps them, and it's built out of their business based upon their questions, their data, and data often from the marketplace, put together in this very interesting, very steamy, saucy stew called a model. Uh, we will build narratives for this, but the model is quite almost academic in some ways. So let me start here. Here is the model, for example. And what I want to do is go to Moodle. And gentle reminders and so on. And let's move to the last piece here. You're going to be seeing the instructor screen, so there's going to be stuff included and not included, things you can see, things you can't see. For those of you who are enrolled, of course. If you're not enrolled, just try to keep your eyeballs in such a way that you don't get go too crazy over this. So this is the very last thing we did, patiently waiting, simulation 1. And the next unit, unit 6 in this course configuration, is not the outer limits or whatever here, that's from another course, and it's almost this. There we go. Oh, there we go, the compendium final, for this final week of June. It's either June 29th or June 30th. I think I put it down for June 30th. Surrounded by robots. This is a 1933 or 34 production of a Rostrom's Universal Robots, a play, 1921-22 by Karl Čapek, and I'm murdering that name, sorry. A Czech playwright who imagines a world, yes, with synthetic, organic, yes, synthetic something. And they do all the work for us. And this could be Carl Friedrich Gauss, but it isn't. This is somebody who's just realizing what's happening to the world. It's a great, great play. The word robot is invented from a programmable mass of something in the Czech language, roboti. And it really also comes from another legend called the Golem of Prague, a mass of clay from the Jewish ghetto in Prague that does your bidding. Programmable. We like that because that's what we're doing here. We're just programming robots. These are models. AI is a robot. It's a model. Okay. And of course, there's some great, great narratives around this. But as we move on here, yeah, they do exactly what we think we want them to do, and most of the time, some models are so complex we can't even imagine what's going on inside, and that's That's a case of very large language models that we have. We know mechanics of it. It's pretty straightforward. It's linear algebra. It's plus, minus, times, with a little bit more than that, of course. We're going to have two planning scenarios here. I'm going to simulate each one in a Monte Carlo. No acceptance criteria for those of you interested in Metropolis Gibbs or no U-turns Hamiltonian Monte Carlo, which we could discuss sometimes. We don't need those hammers for these nails here. Okay, that's what it amounts to. We're going to use exploratory data analysis that we learned in the previous week. We're going to formulate actionable things that MakeAPI can probably do. Okay. Or we will be dismissed. Pencils down and dismissed as consultants. And required by MakeAPI are the following: that we want a complete narrative explanation of the planning model and simulation. We will look at that next. Formulate and defend two planning scenarios. Now, the existing one that's in the model, let's use that. Okay. So you're going to have to explain that scenario. And you've already probably explained it a little bit inside of one. Do the same for that. And a second scenario of your choice, please use your very vivid and active imaginations. 3, this is the analytical part, where we look at analysis and in a comparison of the two analyses of the two scenarios. Now we're going to summarize the Monte Carlo analytics and their results in two ways. One visualization is a table of statistics which summarize the goings on, and these are distributional goings on, ranges and peaks and all sorts of interesting things, and it's really probability. This is literally Bayesian style analysis where we have a lot of input, prior ideas, expectations of how parameters are going to move within the model. And then we have output distributions of various performance indicators in the model. They're called posterior. This is definitely a Bayesian analysis of decisions using Monte Carlo techniques to get at all this. And the exploratory data analysis tables and plots will help us with that explanation. 4, and these are 3 actionable recommendations. And we're going to use Aristotle's organon, Cicero's cur, cuius, etc. To cur means y in Latin, and cuius, whose. Yes, okay. Quomodo quanta was the last 2 pieces. To build an action plan. Every action plan has at least these pieces. One for each scenario. Each actionable recommendation. These would just be, very simple, straightforward. Remember, we're talking to executives who have no time. They're looking at their watches right now, and they're looking, we used to say at their Blackberries. Yeah, they're looking at their phones, okay? Please, that's what's happening. We know this. A summary statement, 1 complete sentence of the recommendation itself. Why? Why are we doing this? What's the purpose, objective, and or goal of the recommendation? What are you trying to achieve? Okay. Yeah, interesting. Who's involved? Who's going to make decisions? You can stub in whatever you want here. You can invent people. Remember, building a narrative. And then you can write the novel. You'll have the rights to the. Maybe you don't have the rights to the novel. Let's think about that. But okay, that's down the road. What to do? What are we going to do? And these are usually steps, a process, perhaps stages, however you want to frame that part of the discussion. You got to remember, you got to be very crisp. Crisp. Yes. Very crisp. When to do it. Give an indication. You can use a graphic here if you want. I'm not going to stop you for sure. in terms of short, medium, and longer term. And you got to define what short, medium, and longer term means. So many analysis are done, short-term fluctuations, longer-term implications. No, get to that medium, because longer term is not infinity. We don't have an infinity of anything in this universe. So, my time's going to run out sooner than yours, perhaps, or yours might, so long term for me might be 5 years, for you 50 years, like, say what it is. Uh, in a discussion of the ways, this is the coherency check. Uh, how does this, everything we just said in these very brief statements about the recommendation, how does it support the goal? Without this, everything falls apart. You must do this part. Okay. And I'm just mimicking what would happen at a client at this point. Here's the final assignment, submit it, annotate it. Okay, it's a spreadsheet that you're submitting. The report is contained within the spreadsheet for a lot of reasons. Now, we use this at Manhattan University as part of our assessment of learning, for an assurance of learning, for our accreditation, and for our own improvement activities in and out of the classroom. And this is definitely in the classroom. And this is around quantitative literacy, among other things, that we attempt to measure. So we have one artifact called a spreadsheet, and everything's in this artifact. It's everything. Okay? And we will be checking to see how much you got out of this. Now, in this course, I have enough time that if you get this to me early enough, perhaps by Saturday or Sunday, which is the end of the week, I can give you some pretty quick feedback if you are, for whatever reason, missing my expectation as somebody who has to assess your performance in this course. Okay. So I will hand it right back to you, and you can do what you need to do to use that feedback to improve um, your masterpiece here. The goal here is that everybody masters this material. This is one way of measuring that. Okay, so that's the assignment, and unfortunately it didn't show. Let me edit the settings here. The model. There's the model. Should be showing the model. Not, I will, activity instructions. For some reason, it's not showing the model. Don't know why. I will try to figure out why, and I will load that model up for you. Okay, that's a check on my performance. Wonderful. So here is the model, as we had before. Uh, there is a report up front. You can see it's you can resize these any way you want. And if you resize it and it's bigger, just make it bigger. Okay. So I can see the entire report. But again, crisp, succinct. And if you want to add a video to build on that, please do. Please submit a link to a video if you would like. Okay, so that's what you're going to. 2 planning scenarios. We'll go through this a little bit more. Down here is, this is very compressed. Here's planning scenario 1, planning scenario number 2. You might want to have, when you do this scenario comparison, further EDA analysis. I can imagine 2 or 3 things you can do. I want you to use your imagination or some other graphic. You're going to probably need more space, because I think these things take a great deal more space. A description and an analytical discussion of the scenario. Now, these are the assumptions. These are name the scenario, tell us what it is. Okay. For ideas about this, you can always go to Royal Dutch Shell and its scenario department. I've been doing this for a long time, and they are probably the gold standard in doing this still, I believe. Many other corporations that I'm familiar with have used that result. But you can check that out. Analytical discussion. You know what you have to put in here. It's already listed out in the assignment. Uh, who Tell us what the elements are, okay, and what the results look like. Okay, and the results will be up here, and we'll see what that looks like in a second. And down here, recommendations for consideration, and here's space for you to wax, not too poetic, uh, being clear so that somebody can read it and go like, I get it. Yeah. Okay, so imagination. Okay, so we've done all our hard work here. Here's the model. And the model has a couple of components to it. Uh, this is an algebraic description of the model. T stands for a period of time. T plus 1 is the end of a period, the beginning of the next period, T plus 1. T is the beginning of the period, previous period. And inventory is X. So the inventory equals a previous inventory plus production minus quantity demanded. Very straightforward. And it's iterative, as you can see. This is what produces the dynamics inside of this model. Production in each and every period is dependent upon technology, called A, times, I mean, how much can we produce with our technology? with one unit of labor, all right? That's the usual idea. All right, L is labor in full-time equivalent. Sigma is the sensitivity of output to changes in labor. It's an elasticity, okay? If you take the derivative of y with respect to L, okay, you can do that. Multiply that times the ratio of L over Y, you're getting elasticity. And that an elasticity can be negative. It could be a negative relationship here. It can be positive. It can be 1. If it's 1, that means a 10% change in labor produces a 10% change in output. This is basic economics, but it's basic decision-making thinking in the decision maker's mind. Okay, and that's not a bad way to think about this. Q is how much is demanded, and there is a price sensitive piece with parameter A1 and a not so sensitive piece, A0. And I discussed a little bit earlier what that might mean. Again, A0 might impound accessibility. I can't reach that market. You know, in the bad old days, I could buy a CD from Tower on the high street in Kensington, have it shipped to my home in New York, but I can't use it here because I don't have the equipment to use it because they don't sell the equipment. And I didn't bring it over. I didn't bring over my my formatted equipment from the UK. Okay, very interesting how technology has that kind of. Some countries don't allow with K-band, for example, the K-band of K-band. These aren't singers and musicians. The K-band of internet, the internet marketplace. They simply, some just don't want you to see that stuff. Okay, accessibility is very, very important. Accessibility is also tariffs and taxes and fees and other things. Okay? The money page on all sites. H is the holding cost, and B is the holding cost, is in this case dollars per unit of inventory. That's what B measures. So this is a ratio analysis, one that you're probably familiar with if you've taken a financial planning component inside of either your corporate finance course or in study, or your basic accounting course. Okay. And the same with production cost. E, cost per unit produced, okay, a ratio. Now, profit is very straightforward. We give it P. Pi, no, this isn't in the circumference of a circle or area of a circle. P times Q is, of course, revenue, and H plus C is, of course, cost. Taxes is all pre-tax. Okay, all pre-tax. Tax should be in here, but not at this point. We're doing a purely operational analysis. And then we solve, check my, now you divide YT by A and raise each side to the 1 over sigma. A little bit of algebra, yeah, okay, fine. But that is labor demand in a nutshell. And assumptions of the analysis will be such that we are going to let A0 and A1 vary according to sampling from normal distributions with means and standard deviations. Sorry about this, the double sigma here, right? There's a should be more attuned to that, but it wasn't today. And we're going to say that those two parameters, A1 and A0, when sampled, are done such that there's a relationship between them. Okay, we're going to Choleskyize them. It's a transform that we talked about last week. Of those two parameters, we're going to call that rho A, P, and so on. Okay, that's how we're going to do that. It's going to be Cholesky transforms. Okay, that's not quite right, but just my notation is actually incorrect, but it's good enough for what we need to do. Okay, and sigma is going to be, it's not a standard deviation here. It's the labor elasticity. Also from a normal distribution with a mean and standard deviation. So don't get too confused here. If you get confused, make sigma here beta. Okay, something like that. And there's a relationship between this parameter, I'm saying, and A1. Think about why that might be. Okay, think about why that might be. Or should it be A0? Think about why that might be. Kind of interesting. You can change this up all you want. So these are the base scenario assumptions that we're going to use. The planning model is unfortunately all on one sheet. You know my feelings about that. One sheet per task. Well, I blew that up. I got multiple tasks here. Here's the base calculation that we did last time. The only thing in here that's different is this A and sigma. A is over here. Okay, and that is A. Notice we're using, watch up here, named ranges, and sigma's here. All right, we've got that. A0. Notice I have to do a little bit of fidgeting around here. I could get numbers that don't make any sense at times because of a sampling. And if there's an error, it tells us to pick a number. In this case, the mean. Okay, and that happens not a little bit of the time. Same here. If error is a terrific term to use to not be embarrassed in front of a crowd, for example. But it's simply good spreadsheet engineering, okay, basically. It's a way to capture errors and manage them. Notice it's managed in a way that makes sense. Take the mean over here. And speaking of which, we have means and standard deviations for A0, A1, not for A. You can do one for that if you want. and sigma. We're doing prime numbers here this week. 89 is a prime. Runs. Now remember, every time you run this, the model is going to recalculate a lot of times to get to a. It's going to sample everything, pop those into the model, pop it in. Okay, it's popped in. Then it's going to solve it. You know the thing up here called solver? Data. Solver. Here's the solver model. Check it out. See if you like it. This little GRG, it's a global gradient method. God help us. And really, because this thing can blow up very easily. They spent the entire weekend doing something really silly in the model, and it kept blowing up. And I'm like, oh, come on. For example, the thing, for whatever reason, it kept changing the objective, which is at J15, which is, of course, a margin. Okay. So I'm describing something here where we have to define for the Cholesky approach a thing called rho, which is the baseline um, and this is something that you can change. We're assuming that A0 and A1 are positively related to one another. But A0, oh, I'm sorry, it was A0 that I used here. A0 and sigma are negatively related. Okay. You can change these as well. These are not big moves, 150. You can make those bigger or smaller. This is not a big move in the elasticity. Okay. Ah, fantastic. I love elasticity. The rest of the model is exactly as we have done before, except, of course, for the labor piece. We still have a safety stock, which is a certain percentage of average demand, warehouse capacity. All of these things you can change, right? All part of it. I did not put those all in the written model. You could do that as well. You can do a screenshot of your own model, right? Hey, sky's the limit. Remember, you're trying to explain this to people who have no training in this, but have an awful lot of business background and will understand every piece of what's in here, okay, especially inventory and so on. Okay, in this particular one, we get some movement here. We get constant inventory, very interesting in this run. But look, we have some variation in price, very interesting. If we go to the right here and we do our simulation, which I'm not going to do in front of you because it'll take time. You see, it will simply take time. This is the simulation collection agent, if you will. Your papers are not in order because get off the train. And there we are. That's my best version of North Country speech. And this one goes down to the 89. And if I go over here, this is directly off of the Cholesky machine. We're making a grid with 21 intervals in here. These are really nodes, not intervals. No, intervals, yes. Intervals, 22 nodes. That's okay, good. And we're making a grid, checking it twice. Each one is, in this case, 2 of something. So this is labor. This is a new child on the block. Down here is the EDA, the exploratory data analysis, which when combined with this is a very complete data analysis story. What data are we examining? We're examining the posterior distribution of our optimal decision-making process. You're doing outer space stuff here. This is the kind of modeling that we need to promote and do more of. It is sensitivity analysis with the important, very important aspect of how often does such an outcome occur? Okay. And the outcome is between, in this case, 38 and 41, midpoint of 40. So we're going to calculate the midpoints, and we can just look through how we did this. Again, I did not, I use AF7. I'd have to use something else. And we have non-overlapping, um, non-overlapping, beautiful topology here, intervals. Okay, and you can see what the mid is from a low to a high, 95. Wow. And these are labor requirements, actually. Labor requirements, implications of the production scheduling. With a mix, because of Cholesky, of demand is involved. So, we've got some interesting moving parts here that I think would be quite interesting. Quite interesting. Uh, Frequency is count. Relative frequency is the count relative to AF8, which is this 89 productions, if you will, runs. You see, we got a nice, interesting curve here. Cumulative is, this is an integral. If this is an integral, this is the derivative of the integral. There we go. Yes, integral function. The ogive for some of you. And then we have the Gaussian version of it. Now the Gaussian version, cancel. The Gaussian version takes the mean and standard deviation, AM4, of this mid, and then tells you what is AF17. AF17 is what we're getting for the mean, and then 18 is the standard deviation. Now that all these analyses again are all linked together. There's no big rocket science going on here. Actually, rocket science isn't rocket science. It's got a lot of moving parts. That's really what it has. And it does a lot of optimization too. And okay, that blinked on and off. Notice we're using good hygiene here because we might need to change labels. This one here is directly from that. We might have a minor little database to look up something with index match, something a little bit more savory than average labor sim, whatever that means. So you're going to have to explain that. And we have a complete graph here. Well, fairly complete. We have in this case, this axis, the secondary axis, the distribution, the posterior distribution of labor. Notice it peaks and then moseys on down. Now, if we had more than 89, which is a possibility, you can run that, but I wouldn't recommend it for this exercise. In production, I certainly would do it, and actually in production, I probably would do this in the background somehow to reduce the overhead. Overhead is just the Excel's production of what you see in front of you. What you see is what you get in front of you. That costs time and space inside the models, inside the computer actually. And then we have the Gaussian version, which is this nice smooth curve. You see it's non-Gaussian, no kidding. It's shifted. Okay, and this is where you see where the bump up versus this, right? It's higher than the Gaussian. That's because it's bumping up early on. It's an inflection point here. And it's beyond the inflection point. All sorts of interesting ways of talking about this. The only problem with this one, Bill, is right-clicking that format. And it's doing it automatically this way. And this is not acceptable to me. There we go. That's acceptable. Just like this usually works out to 1.2 or 1.1. That's always 0. So these are important Yes, they're details, but this is publishable. You don't have to guess. Or what somebody might say, "What's a negative labor requirement?" Okay, so uh, that's that model, and I think that means my time is up. So what we'll do is go back to the beginning here. This is what we have. And realize that all of this gets simulated, but this is how we're going to describe our scenarios, compare them. We're going to run different scenario, take a screenshot and use this for each scenario and compare them. Take a screenshot of this for each scenario and compare them. Okay. This is the work that's required. Okay, I'm going to leave you with that. Might have some more thoughts about the report. Put those in comments and we'll discuss them together. I'm going to leave you with this. This is a great time to stop. Thank you very much for your kind attention. And have at it. I can't wait to see what the results are. This is going to be fun. Right? People call this fun. I certainly do. So take care and thanks.